The American people are beginning to take notice. Let's get to this polling segment. I mean, when we take a look at how the mighty have fallen here with Biden, and particularly this graph that Axios has put together, it is stunning. So you can see that a great deal and a fair amount of trust in Joe Biden's ability to provide accurate COVID-19 information was in the high 50s whenever he took office back in January. It starts to dip a little bit after he takes the oath of office. That's how it always goes. Partisanship begins to kick in, but the gulf between the two is clearly there, especially back in May. The reason why is that May was a time of a lot of vaccinations, Delta, all of that. Delta begins to plunge. Immediately, his I don't trust numbers and a great deal of fair amount of trust numbers begin to plunge, but he's still ahead. He's still above that 50% mark. But Krystal, after September, right around mid-August and more, it crosses the threshold, it begins to get tied, and today stands at 53% of the public saying not very much, none at all in Joe Biden's ability to provide accurate COVID-19 information, only 45%. So that actual cross is probably the single most important figure of his entire presidency, even more so than his approval rating. Something that we noticed during the Trump administration, especially during the vote, a lot of people didn't like Trump. He had a very low approval rating in the 30s. A lot of people still voted for him. Why? Because if you dug deeper, trust in his ability to make the economy stronger. Biden's actually been underwater on that economy number since basically he started out at 50% on the day he swore the oath. Since then, it's been a disaster. It's like mid-40s, sometimes even the 30s. But what was saving Biden, let's be honest, why did Biden get elected? It was because of COVID and his ability to handle COVID. The lower the trust figure goes on that ability in order to convey trustful information, and you don't have the economy thing in the back pocket the way that Trump did, it's going to be really bad. And just to give you guys an example, latest YouGov poll, Biden has still not recovered from that large slump. Put Ryan Gerdusky's tweet up there on the screen. This is just the hard approve, disapprove. Overall is 40-49. So he has a 9-point gap there in his approve, disapproval rating. The important figures are going to be the independent number, where it's 34% approve, 56%. And even amongst people who voted for Biden, it's 81-13. Now, you might say that that's good, bad. The Trump figure was almost always in the 90s just because he had such a high level of approval within his own base. I'm also paying quick attention to the Hispanic number there, Krystal, at 41% approve, 43% disapprove. So not having that in a core constituency, which he only won by 2/3 to 1/3 last time, and which, of course, the GOP won at least some margins in, it's really bad. I think he put it all together, especially with the vote. People are asking the question, why? What are you doing here?
Right.
Like, you were elected for one reason, COVID. Also, you promised us all these social programs and that you were going to pass it through your legislative genius. That ain't happening. So now what?
Here was the core promise of Biden. Here were his strengths. One was just that people liked him.
Yes.
They liked him. They did trust him.
He was an empathetic
They
figure.
felt like, look, he's not perfect, but he's not always like totally articulate or totally with it even. But I feel like he's a good guy.
Yeah.
I feel like he's gonna tell me what's really going on, as opposed to Trump, which like is a maniac and you never know what you're gonna get with him. He was this sort of steadying, calming force that people did feel a lot of empathy for and just sort of liked on a personal level. So when you see those numbers around just, do I trust you even to be effective or get things done, but I just trust you not to lie to me, to be straight with me, that's a pretty damaging sign. And then, the other piece of his promise was basically through the return to normalcy thing was that I'm going to be a steady hand. You're not going to have chaos in Washington. And yet, what do we see? We see a lot of manifest incompetence. We do see, a lot of chaos in Washington and the same sort of brinksmanship and insanity that people were frankly tired of. And some of it is, look, obviously the Republicans are obnoxious. Obviously Manchin and Sinema are obnoxious. But as we've been saying, a big part of this does fall to Biden. And I really think when he decided that he wanted to slow down and he wanted to get this bipartisan deal and he wanted to strip that apart from the social spending, that's when things really started to go off the rails. And that's how we find ourselves now with these cascading crises. The one thing they did manage, it looks like, to do is they are going to pass the continuing resolution on the budget.
Right. So fund the government.
The government is not going to shut down today, so that's one thing. Congratulations. But you know, you've got 2 weeks until the debt ceiling hits.
That's right.
So you can breathe, you know, for a couple nights here before we're back at the brink once again. Of course, as I said yesterday, they should just mint the coin and be done with the debt ceiling altogether. But on the polling, the only good thing I can say, and we can put this 538 graphic up on the screen. So this is obviously the average of polls from 538. They've got him today at a 49% disapproval and about a 45% approval. So still underwater by 4 points there. The one thing I can say is it's kind of evened out. You know, for a while, and this really started during the Afghanistan withdrawal, which he took a big hit on from the media. For a while, he was kind of in free fall there, and it was hard to say where things would level out. The one good thing you can say is things have kind of leveled out, but they've leveled out with him significantly underwater. And that's, again, that's not cherry picking. That's in an average of polls where he effectively stands today. And oh, by the way, we should also add in that, as we know from the last election, the polls tend to be skewed in favor of Democrats. So it is very possible that the actual reality picture looks even worse than that average of polls by a few points.
And always take the enthusiasm number in there. So how many people out there are like, yeah, I like Joe Biden, he's doing an all right job. Are you gonna go and vote for him in the 2000, or vote to affirm him in 2022? No, a lot of those people are just gonna stay home.
Yeah.
How many people out there are like, I hate Joe Biden, or I hate, you know, what this, or I'm just really pissed off. I thought you were gonna fix it. You know, you said you were gonna come in. I'm still under lockdown, or things aren't back to normal, or hey, the gas prices are high, even though they generally don't have anything to do with that. And they're gonna go out and they're gonna vote. I mean, it's really remarkable. I was out in California recently. I saw gas prices like $5 a gallon. I was like, this is insane. $5 a gallon? And like I've said previously, that pretty much has nothing to do with the president. It has to do with OPEC and it has to do with supply. But I would be remiss if I did not say that what the administration's problem is they are not talking to those types of issues if they're talking at all. They are really just completely MIA. Jen Psaki is probably one of the most unlikable people I've ever seen in my entire life, despite whatever the media wants to tell you. People need to hear from their president. Yeah, I heard you. Yeah. Biden is the only person on his entire staff, especially the vice president, who has any connection whatsoever with the American people. And he's also the person who speaks the least in terms of what's happening there. I put it all together. I just see them completely spiraling down the drain. Now, look, could he still win? Yeah, I mean, of course. Like Obama also had a very, very tough first year in office, you know, bad poll numbers, all of that. But the lack of energy, vitality, knowing that Trump is in the wing, seeing the energized Republican base, I just see doom, you know, across all fronts.
Yeah, I think, look, people feel really pessimistic right now. I mean, that's just the bottom line. They're frustrated, right? We're supposed to be done with COVID, and yet parents are having to deal with, oh, my kid was exposed to COVID at school, now they're back home again. We're still, you know, wearing masks, still having to worry, still having to deal with this thing that we thought we should be done with now. And some of that's Biden's fault, some of it's not his fault, but that's the reality of where we stand. And then you see this, you know, frustrating debate in Washington that I think, frankly, a lot of people have just tuned out. And it does contribute to this overall sense of a country in permanent decline. Like, we can't even do the very basics of avoiding crises and avoiding brinksmanship and passing things like prescription drug reform that have 80 to 90% support. And you just look at that and you're like, Jesus Christ, like, it doesn't matter who I put in office. Like, maybe I voted for Trump last time. I thought he was going to shake things up. That sucked. This time I was like, all right, well, let's put this old guy in charge instead of the other old guy. And maybe that'll change things. And maybe he knows how this town actually works. That doesn't seem to be working out. And, you know, I think people just feel incredibly frustrated and pessimistic about the direction of the country. And look, part of that isn't Biden's fault, and part of it is Biden's fault, because he has chosen an incredibly tactically stupid way of approaching his presidency. He's chosen to not assertively be in front of the American people, making the case, inspiring them, calling them to a greater purpose as, one country and as Americans. And so that's, I think, why we find ourselves where he finds himself today. And that is a very ugly place in terms of heading into midterm elections, and just in terms of like forgetting about the politics and the horse race part. It's just a depressing state of affairs, that it doesn't seem to matter who the American people elect. Change election after change election after change election, and you seem to end up always back in the same exact place. So I think those numbers of his approval rating and really that number around trust to even just provide accurate information, it's pretty damning.
Very damning.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it, you get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.